Back in 1792, the U.S. Congress passed a law that, honestly, was so much more than just a piece of legislation. It was a blueprint for money itself. It was a declaration of economic independence and a promise of integrity. And today, we're going to talk about the story of the dollar that you've probably never been told.
So let's just start with a really simple question. When the founders created the United States dollar, what was it? The answer is incredibly specific, and it's a universe away from the dollar that's in your pocket right now.
That's it. A dollar wasn't just a name or a piece of paper with a president on it. The Coinage Act of 1792 defined a dollar as a precise unit of weight, about 24 grams of pure silver. It was a real, measurable thing, something you could hold in your hand, test, and actually trust.
And that definition, it was the bedrock of a really meticulous system, a blueprint for money built on two precious metals, and most importantly, a profound sense of trust.
You've got to remember what was going on at the time. The brand new nation was just drowning in this messy mix of Spanish pesos, British pounds, you name it. And trust in paper money, it was at rock bottom. Because the continental dollar, the paper money from the revolution, had completely collapsed. You know the phrase, not worth a continental? Yeah, it came directly from that financial disaster.
So Alexander Hamilton's big idea was this bimetallic system. And you can see the balance they were going for right here. Gold, because it was scarce and valuable, would be the anchor, providing stability for the whole economy. And at the same time, the more common silver was meant for everyday transactions, making sure the average person had money to use.
Now, the secret sauce holding all of this together was a legally fixed ratio. The law literally said that 1 ounce of gold was worth exactly 15 ounces of silver. That was it. This was the mathematical heart of the entire monetary system.
And this just shows you how deadly serious the founders were about monetary honesty. If you were an official at the U.S. Mint and you got caught deliberately messing with the metal content of the coins, what they call debasing the currency, the penalty wasn't a fine. It was death. To them, this wasn't just some economic crime. It was a deep moral theft from the entire nation.
But, even a system built with that kind of intensity couldn't last forever. As America grew and changed, the pressures of war, new gold rushes, and global economics, well, they all started to create these deep cracks in that monetary foundation.
And you can see on this timeline how that foundation started to crumble. It really kicked off in 1834 when new gold discoveries shifted the market prices, forcing Congress to change the ratio to 16-1. Well, this overvalued gold and drove all the now more valuable silver coins right out of circulation. Then the Civil War comes along, and its sheer cost made it impossible to pay for with just metal. So the government printed unbacked paper money, the greenbacks, and that led to massive inflation. The final nail in the coffin came in 1873 when the U.S. decided to follow global trends and officially demonetize silver. Critics would later call that the crime of '73.
So that crime of '73 basically put the U.S. on a gold standard, and that made money much, much tighter. Great if you were a creditor or a banker, but it caused immense hardship for farmers and debtors who watched their debts get bigger in real terms. All that populist anger from that era was captured perfectly in this famous speech by William Jennings Bryan. He literally saw the gold standard as a tool that was crucifying the common person.
So the 19th century definitely weakened the system. But the 20th century, well, it just brought in the wrecking ball. 3 key moments, each one a response to a major crisis, would permanently sever the dollar from its metallic roots.
The whole thing was dismantled in 3 pretty clear steps. First, after a bunch of really damaging bank panics, the Federal Reserve was created in 1913 to centralize and manage the money supply. Okay, step 1. 20 years later, right in the middle of the Great Depression, President Roosevelt makes it illegal for private citizens to own gold. A drastic move for sure, but it was all about regaining monetary control. And then, the final link was severed in 1971. President Nixon, facing these international runs on U.S. gold reserves, gets on TV and says he's temporarily suspending the dollar's convertibility to gold. Spoiler alert, that temporary measure is still in effect today. The original blueprint was gone. For good.
And that brought us right into the modern era, the age of fiat currency, an age where money is no longer a physical thing of substance, but really a system of belief.
So what is a fiat dollar? Well, it's not backed by silver or gold. It's backed only by the, quote, full faith and credit of the government that issues it. Its value comes from all of us just collectively agreeing, from a promise that it's actually worth something.
So what's been the result of cutting that link to physical reality? While the US dollar has lost over 95% of its original purchasing power, you could say that promise has been a pretty costly one.
And wow, this just illustrates that decline perfectly. If you were to measure today's dollar against that original 1792 definition, that 24 grams of silver, our modern paper dollar is worth less than a nickel. Literally every inflation chart you have ever seen tells this exact same story.
This slide really just gets to the heart of the philosophical shift. What the founders considered a crime worthy of the death penalty, debasing the currency, is now just standard operating procedure. We just call it something else now, right? We call it monetary stimulus or quantitative easing. It's celebrated as policy.
So, what's the lesson in all of this? The story of the Coinage Act isn't just a history lesson. It's a timeless warning about the relationship between money, the power to create it, and the trust you need to sustain it.
See, the act of debasement hasn't disappeared. It's just evolved. It's gotten more sophisticated. For instance, there's something called the Cantillon effect, which explains how modern money creation works. New money gets created and enters the economy through large financial institutions. They get to spend it first, at its full value, before it trickles down and causes prices to rise for everybody else. That price rise, inflation, acts like a silent tax, just eating away at your savings. And if we look to the future, the push for central bank digital currencies raises all sorts of new questions about whether money could become a tool for control, maybe even linked to permission.
So here's the bottom line. The founders saw sound money not just as some economic tool, but as a firewall against tyranny. They knew that when you give the government the power to devalue currency whenever it wants, you're also giving it the power to silently confiscate the wealth and labor of its own citizens.
Ultimately, this forgotten history of the Coinage Act forces us to ask a really fundamental question today. As we move deeper into a world of digital, programmable, and endlessly expandable currency, we have to decide, is the money we use going to be a measure of our freedom or a tool for our control? The answer to that question is going to define the next 2 centuries, just as the Coinage Act of 1792 defined the first.